So let's go ahead to create our Prometheus server. For us to set up our Prometheus server, we are going to be using Amazon Linux image to create a Prometheus server on AWS. Now we'll come to instances and then we are going to launch an instance. By the way, before launching an instance, let's check out the Prometheus port. So you can check Prometheus port. We'll see the port range on which Prometheus runs. So if you search Prometheus port, you can see Prometheus runs on port 9090. Prometheus by default listens to port 9090. So you need to configure port 9090. So what is Prometheus port 9090? So for us to get started, we have to select launch instance. So let's click on launch instances. I'll take launch instances. I'll give the name Prometheus server, and then I'll allow the Amazon machine image as the default Amazon Linux 22 because we are going to be running Prometheus on Amazon Linux 22. So I'll allow the Amazon Linux 2023, which is free tier eligible. And then for the instance type, I'll select T2 medium. So let me search for T2 medium. I'll select T2 medium. So Amazon Linux 2023 T2 medium. For the key pair, I'll select my regular key pair, the key pair I have access to. And then for network settings, I'll click on edit network settings. I'll be using the default VPC where I'll configure it in a public subnet. I'll be using the default VPC and I'll configure it in a public subnet, and then I'll auto enable public IP, and then I'll be creating a new security group. So I'll call this security group Prometheus Learning SG, Prometheus Learning Security Group, or SG, and then I'll copy all of these and I paste it here, Prometheus Learning SG, to specify the Prometheus security group. Now I'll also allow port 22 as default because we want to be able to SSH into the Prometheus server. So I'll allow the default port 22, but I'll add a security group rule, custom HTTP. So now this rule will be port 9090. Remember, port 9090 is the default Prometheus port. If you check in the official Prometheus documentation, you'll see that Prometheus listens by default to port 9090. So when launching the instance, I'll do custom TCP port 9090, and for training purposes, I'll customize the source type for anywhere IPv4. And then basically I'll take over the steps. So we'll start by, you launch the server, give the name Prometheus server, we allow Amazon Linux 2023, and then we allow the instance type as T2 medium, we allow the key pair as given key pair name, and then I'll be configuring it in my default VPC. You can use any VPC of your choice, and then it's going to be in a public subnet with auto enable public IP or auto assign public IP enabled. I'll create a new security group. I'll call it Prometheus Learning Security Group. I'll equally give the same description. And then for the security group, I'll allow port 22 by default to enable me SSH into the server. And then I'll equally allow port 9090 to be able to access Prometheus via the web browser. So once I've done all these basic configurations, here's a summary of my configurations. One instance, Amazon Linux 2023, T2.medium, configure the new security group role, storage, and then I'll select launch instance. Now once I launch the instance, you will see the instance has successfully initiated. So I can click here to go to the instance. The instance has been successfully initiated. This is the instance ID 08B14 that to indicate that the instance has been successfully initiated. I can highlight here. Then I'm going to SSH into this instance because we want to be able to install Prometheus using the installation script. Again, this is our Prometheus installation script. If you come to the repository we have, you come to Prometheus Grafana setups. If you open this, you see all the various installation files. Here is a script which you are going to be running on that server, install prometheus.sh. If you run this shell script, you basically be able to install Prometheus on any given server. And the script basically, you're adding a user called Prometheus, and you're making a directory in the etc folder for the Prometheus server, and you're equally making a directory in the var lib for the Prometheus, which is basically two requirements for Prometheus to run. And then you download the Prometheus package, you unzip the package, you copy the contents into the respective directories which you created using this set of commands. And then you also want to copy the prometheus.yaml file. Take note of this special file, the prometheus.yaml file, which is a file which you are going to be using to configure our Prometheus targets. So you want to copy this prometheus.yaml file into the etc prometheus directory. And then we are also going to copy the prometheus.service into the etc systemd to enable Prometheus so that we can start Prometheus on server startup. So after you've done all these basic configurations, you give the necessary permissions, you now enable the Prometheus service, you start Prometheus service, and you can, of course, we can check the service to confirm if Prometheus is running. Now let's come back to our instance to be sure our instance has gone through the 2-on-2 check. So if I refresh this, I'll see the instance is still initializing. But given that the instance is initializing, let's try to SSH into the instance. So I'll take connect. Once I click on connect, I'll copy this command to be able to SSH into that server. So I'll copy this command to be able to SSH into that server. I'll come to my terminal. If you're using MacBook, you can use your terminal. If you're using Windows, you can use your Git bash. I'll come to my terminal and I'll input the command. Take note, I'm working in the directory where I have my key pair. My key pair is currently on my desktop. If you do not have your key pair in your desktop, you want to cd into a directory where you have your key pair. Now, once I'm in the directory with my key pair, I'm just going to paste the command to enable me log into the server. Are you sure you want to continue connecting? I'll take yes. And once I take yes, it will automatically log me into the given server. So Amazon Linux 2023, this is the server which we are going to be using to set up Prometheus. Now, once you're logged into the server, you come back to my repository, you click on the repository, you click on my repository, you can click here, Prometheus Grafana Learning. We want to get the repository link, so I'll click here and then I'll copy this link. I'll come back to my Prometheus server. I'll start by installing Git on this server because we want to be able to clone this repository. We want to be able to clone this my learning repository into my Prometheus given repository. So for me to do that, I'll do sudo yum install Git. I want to start by installing Git to give me the possibility to clone any repository into this server. So I'll do sudo yum install git -y. I'll do sudo yum install git -y to install Git on this given server. So the installation is complete. So once Git is installed on my server, I'll do git clone and I paste the repository link. So I'll type the command git space clone and I paste the repository link and I hit enter. This is going to clone the Prometheus and Grafana learning repository into my Amazon Linux image. So if I do pwd and I do an ls, I'll see I have now the Prometheus learning directory that has been created in my EC2 user. This is the directory which we are going to be using to install Prometheus. Now, if I cd into Prometheus and Grafana Learning and I do an ls, you'll see I have the README and then I have Prometheus Grafana setups. Again, I'll still cd into this Prometheus Grafana setup. So I'll cd into Prometheus Grafana setups. Once I'm in Prometheus Grafana setups, I can do a pwd to confirm that I'm in the Prometheus Grafana Learning, Prometheus Grafana setups. And for me to see the content of this given directory, I will do an ls and I will see all the various installation files. I have the install grafana.sh, nodeexporter.sh, prometheus.sh. So I want to install Prometheus. So I'll be installing Prometheus, or I'll be using the install prometheus.sh. I can cut the file, I can cut install prometheus.sh, and this is the basic configuration which we are going to be running on the Prometheus server. This set of commands, we could run these commands one at a time, but we are going to use a shell script to install Prometheus using that shell script. So let me clear, and then for you to run the shell script, you type sh and then you run the command install prometheus.sh. So you do sh install prometheus.sh and you hit enter. So this will install Prometheus on the server. Once you do that, you should run that shell script and then you install Prometheus on the server. Now, if your Prometheus installation is complete, you will see the Prometheus server active and running. If your Prometheus installation is complete, you see the Prometheus server active and running. And now, if it is active and running, you can come back to your console, come to the instance, the Prometheus server. I'll come to the Prometheus server right here, and then I'll copy the Prometheus instance public IP. This is the Prometheus instance public IP. I'll copy the Prometheus server public IP. I'll put in a new tab, and I'll specify the port range of Prometheus, which is port 9090. If I paste the public IP of the Prometheus server and I specify the port range of Prometheus, port 9090, and I hit enter, I should be able to access Prometheus. Now, if you have this, given that I'm using incognito tab, I can take continue to site, and it should take me to Prometheus. You can see Prometheus time series collection and processing server. So this is basically it. Prometheus, this is the basic dashboard. Now you can see your Prometheus alerts if you've set up alerts, which we have not yet done. You can see graphs if you've set up graphs. Now the most important thing we should take note of here is the targets. Do you have some targets that you've configured with your Prometheus server? If you click on targets, currently the only target we have is our local host, which is the Prometheus server, and the state of this target is up, meaning that we can access the Prometheus server and we can collect logs from this given server. If I'm to click here, because it's local, we are not able to access this on the private IP of the Prometheus server. We cannot access the Prometheus server on this given port because we do not have the right access on networking wise with AWS, but we are going to set up more configuration subsequently to enable us access our Prometheus server. So this is the basic configuration which you can use to set up and install Prometheus on an EC2 instance. So let's move on to the next module where we are going to be configuring our respective target servers to collect monitoring logs from them.